Vanakkam Namaskar. You're watching our show Rastram and I am your host Sanjay Madrasi Pandey. A civilizational war smoldering for decades underneath the serene surface of the Northeast has erupted once again in the form of ongoing communal violence in Manipur. Yes, you heard it right. It is not an ethnic clash, as the mainstream media and the governments and political parties would want you to believe. It is a clash of civilizations, period. Since last month, more than 100 people have been killed and over 47,000 have been forced to flee their homes in the restive northeastern state of Manipur. Around 10,000 army and Assam rifle personnel have been deployed to restore the ever-elusive peace in the troubled state. Though the curfew has been relaxed in most districts now, the sporadic incidents of shootouts between armed Kuki Christian terrorists and Meitei Hindu civilians keep the communal cauldron burning. It seems Union Home Minister Amit Shah's attempt to assuage the concerns of different stakeholders got a mixed response. The trigger-happy Christian terrorists trained by China and Pakistan are now demanding a separate state for themselves on the basis of their religion. The Kuki terrorists are still carrying out sporadic attacks on Meitei Hindu lawmakers, security forces and Hindu villages. Around 2,000 weapons, including AK-47s, insas rifles, tear gas, stain guns, a grenade launcher and a range of pistols were looted from the police armory following an ethnic violence that erupted on May 3. Despite pleas of Union Home Minister Amit Shah to surrender the weapons and security forces, threats of stern action against those found in possession of the looted weapons, only 18% of it has been recovered so far. So what was the immediate trigger to the ongoing violence in Manipur? On April 19, the Manipur High Court issued an order directing the state government to recommend to the Union Tribal Affairs Ministry by May 29 an ST tag for the majority Meitei community. The SC order was seen as an endorsement of the Meiteis' decade-old demand for their inclusion into the scheduled tribe fold. Arguing that the Meiteis enjoyed the ST status before Manipur's merger with the Indian Union, the petitioners sought the restoration of the erstwhile status. Shedding all inhibitions of legally countering the Meiteis' demand, the Christian terrorists unleashed terror on the pretext of carrying out a tribal solidarity march across 10 tribal-dominated hill districts on May 13, leading to deaths of at least 54 people. Fueled by mutual suspicion between Christian tribals and Hindus, the communal cauldron of Manipur has been simmering for some time. The BJP-led Manipur government had started a drive to evict tribal villagers, mostly illegal Kuki intruders from Myanmar, from the reserve forests to avert demographic change and thereby disrupting Christian terrorists' secessionist dream of creating a separate Kuki land, an exclusive Christian country carved out of India. Like the Pak-sponsored jihadists, supported by a large section of local Muslims, are waging a war against India to carve out an Islamic state of Kashmir, and Khalistani terrorists have upped the ante of a separate state for Sikhs in Punjab. The Christian terrorists have been waging a war against Indian Union to fulfill their secessionist dream of creating Christian states of Kuki land in Manipur and Nagalim in Nagaland, and so on. So why are these people hell-bent on breaking away from India and creating theocratic states by balkanizing the country? The answer is demographic dominance. In the last 100 years, Northeast has faced massive demographic changes brought about by rampant conversion of the hill tribes by Christian missionaries and their eventual alienation from the faith of their forefathers. As far as Manipur is concerned, it is currently fighting a civilizational war. Though the violence is happening in all quarters, the ultimate loser is Sanatan Hindu Dharma and the eventual winner would be the Christian missionaries. Manipur is named after Mani, meaning jewel. If you take an aerial view of Manipur, you would be able to see a low-lying river valley surrounded by mountains from all sides. The valley, which makes up For 10% of the total landmass of the state inhabits the Meiteis, who are Vaishnavite Hindus, while the hills that constitute 90% of the state inhabit different tribes of Christian converts. Though a minuscule minority of Meiteis, falling in general category, live in the hills, they are not allowed to own land as tribal lands are protected by law. Christian majority has virtually turned the hills into Christian protectorates, where Hindus have little currency. But the valley, dominated by Hindus, is free for all. Anyone can buy land and settle down in the valley at whim. If this trend of decadal demographic dwindle of Hindus continues unabated, the Meiteis will be reduced to a minority in the valley soon. Under such circumstances, it won't be an exaggeration to say the Hindus are literally and geographically under siege in Manipur. To understand Manipur's volatile demographic situation, one needs to look at the decade-on-decade population growth of Christians as against Hindus in the state. As per 2011 census, Hindu and Sanmahi, a tribal pagan religion friendly with Hindu Dharma, constitute 53% of the state's population, while 40% are Christian and the rest are Muslims. Meitei Pangals or Muslims are descendants of Mughal soldiers who married Meitei women. Over the years, their ranks have swollen with influx of Muslims from Assam and Bangladesh. While followers of all religion can claim rights over 10% land in and around Imphal Valley, the hills are reserved only for Christians. And if someone tries to alter that equation, the Christians violently flush them out. One such incident happened when a Hindu tribe settled in the neighboring Christian majority state of Mizoram. They were forcefully evicted by the enraged Christian tribes. In the end, they had to settle down in Hindu majority Tripura. But there is no such safety net for beleaguered Hindus who are forced to fight demographic battles on both ends. Christian pressure hurtling down from the hills and the Pangal Muslim push back in the valley. Take a closer look at the census data from 1900 to 2011 and you would know why Hindus are on the way to extinction in Manipur too. They have already lost the ground in the hills, and now their last bastion, the valley, is at risk due to decadal demographic dwindle in the last 1 century. In 1901, Hindus were 96%. In the next 5 decades, till 1951, their population dwindled to 18%. A decline of 15% in 50 years doesn't sound that alarming, but what happened in next 50 years post-independence under the watch of the Nehru-Gandhi family sounds alarming. From 1961 to 2011, the Hindu population plummeted to 30% thanks to India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and his daughter Indira Gandhi's dalliance with the missionaries that got a free run and state patronization to carry out rampant soul harvesting of the tribes in the entire Northeast. Now consider the havoc wreaked by the peaceful armies of missionaries on every non-Christian soil they set their viperish foot on. Distrust among ethnic groups and communal disharmony that you see today in the Northeast was built systematically, leisurely by alienating the tribes from their native culture and traditions. And if you thought Christianization of the Northeast was mere accidental, think again. Center for Policy Studies' latest note on the religious data census of 2011 sheds light on how the demographics of the Northeast have drastically changed in the last century. Northeast India forms a major region of Christian concentration in India today. Of the 2.78 crore Christian counted in 2011, 78 lakhs are in the Northeast. This is the largest concentration of Christian in India after the coastal region stretching from southern Tamil Nadu and Kerala to coastal Karnataka, Goa and Maharashtra. But unlike other regions, the spread of Christianity in the Northeast is almost entirely a phenomenon of the 20th century. Much of the Christian expansion in the Northeast occurred during 1931-51 and more prominently during 1941-51, and this expansion has continued unabated since 1951. The tribal population of Mizoram, Manipur and Nagaland have now become almost entirely Christian. And the credit for this largely goes to India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, his highly developed immunity against wisdom, and an incurable fascination for the white skin. Nehru literally squandered away the destinies of millions of people in the region by gifting it to the vile warrior Alvin. Dr. N.S. Rajaram tells the naked truth about Alvin and why we are calling him evil. The Army Chief General Cariappa had advised Nehru that the Northeast should be developed to bring its population into the national fold. But a British missionary called Warrior Alvin advised Nehru that the region that had many tribal communities should not be interfered with to preserve their pristine character. In a bid to clear the field for the missionaries, Nehru banned entry of Hindu sadhus to Nagaland by signing a pact with Alvin. This left the field open for foreign Christian missionaries to carry out their dreaded soul harvesting with impunity in the area. Naive Nehru's disregard for General Cariappa's suggestion and his blind love for Alvin's preservation policy undermined national security by creating a vulnerable Northeast. The impact of his Himalayan blunder can be gauged from the dramatic demographic changes that took place in Nagaland after independence. From 20% in 1947, the Christian population aided by rampant mass conversion has shot up to 95% today. Same is the case with Mizoram. In 1911, the share of Christians in the population of Mizoram was merely 3%. Today it is 87%. In the Northeast, Meghalaya was the first to witness the expansion of Christianity. In 1901, Christians constituted merely 6.6% of the total population. Their numbers steadily rose to 24.66% till 1951. But in the next 50 years, the number of Christians grew astronomically by 50%. Today, Christians comprise 75% of the state's population, while Hindus have been reduced to a minority with little or no political currency. After demographically conquering Nagaland, Mizoram and Meghalaya and reducing Hindus to a political non-currency there, the soul harvesting vultures of the missionaries, aided and abated by the anti-India forces, have zeroed in on conversion of the Meitei Hindus living in the Imphal Valley of Manipur. Mind you, the entire tribal population living in the hills have already been converted in Manipur, soaring up Christian population to 41%. The Meitei Hindu community, which accounts for around 53% of the state's population, is the only roadblock that needs to be removed for complete Christianization of Manipur on the lines of Nagaland, Mizoram and Meghalaya. Rampant demographic changes in the region gave birth to Christian terrorist groups made of neo-converts who often consider themselves more Catholic than the Pope and are now waging a war to carve out separate Christian states from India. As Delhi looked the other way, Northeast kept hurtling down the dangerous road of deterioration, destruction, alienation, demographic change and secessionist movements. Yet for 7 decades, the story and the history of this tragic criminal isolation was hidden in plain sight, courtesy to the evil genius of the Congress communist regimes and their lapdog media. It is only after Narendra Modi-led BJP's triumph in the Northeast and his government's Lucas policy, Northeast has started to get the national spotlight. Unable to stomach Modi's emphatic triumph in the Christian majority and militancy-torn Northeast, the Break India forces are all worked up to foment crisis and weave a narrative that minorities are not safe in Modi's India. One of the main reasons for the recent clashes was the BJP-led state government's ongoing drive in the hills, that is, bulldozing illegal Myanmar origin Kuki intruders' settlement, illegal churches and poppy plantations in the hills. According to the latest state government figures, illicit poppy cultivation is done in an estimated 15,400 acres of land in Manipur. Since 2017, when the government drive against the drug business started, poppy crops in 15,496 acres of land have been destroyed. During the same 6-year period, 837 illegal Kuki-Chin migrants from Myanmar were arrested for cultivation of poppy, and for their involvement in the drug trade. Like Punjab, Manipur and the entire northeast is also facing narco-terrorism. This, coupled with illegal migration of cookies from Myanmar border to Manipur, their encroachment on jungle land and their involvement in narco trade, makes it a complex national security issue. For the uninitiated, many sister tribes of cookies live across the border in Myanmar, where they get arms training from Pakistan and China. Then they cross over to the Indian side, join Indian cookie terrorists here to wage a secessionist war against India. Apparently, the BJP-led state government's re-election and its continuation of the drive to flush out illegals and break the narco-terror nexus prompted the cookie drug lords, some of them illegal migrants from Myanmar, to retaliate through cookie terrorists against the government's action by punishing common Meitei Hindus. The drug lords, who fund and arm the terrorist groups like Kuki National Army and ZRA, are now orchestrating the violence and want to keep the pot boiling. They want to keep the communal cauldron burning because they fear if things return to normalcy, the government will resume the operation against poppy cultivation and drug trafficking, throwing them out of work and derailing their dream of carving a Christian state out of India. End of drug business would also mean they lose their support base, cookie farmers and commoners who comprise the majority of the workforce that is involved in poppy cultivation, drug processing and trafficking in Manipur. A troubled and strife-torn state is conducive to the business of drug lords, as it guarantees the smooth functioning of their illicit drug business. Also, they want to further widen the communal divide between cookies and Meiteis till it becomes permanent, and then demand a separate state on the grounds that cookies and Meiteis can't live together peacefully. Yet the mainstream media is busy portraying it as a tribal warfare. The Hindu society might also be seeing these clashes as locals versus tribal people. A devout Christian, however, won't have any confusion over the nature of the ongoing war. For them, it is a crusade, a holy war for Jesus Christ, to rid the Northeast of non-Christians. The Hindus have traditionally suffered from denial of crisis and confusion over a course of action for retaliation when caught unawares in the middle of a clash of civilization. On the contrary, Christians and Muslims, who have instigated clash of civilizations world over and successfully annihilated civilizations such as Romans, Egyptians, Mayans, clearly see these wars as holy war or jihad. That is precisely why clueless Hindus always lose civilizationally. Despite 1300 years of slavery and losing 1/3 of the country just 75 years ago, Hindu society hasn't learned its lesson. Even after partition, Hindu Dharma continues its losing streak to predatory faiths and has been reduced to a minority in 8 Indian states so far. In Manipur, Hinduism has held out so far because Meiteis are also fierce. But the larger Hindu society's continual apathy would lead to Meiteis' debacle sooner or later. When the majority community takes off the blindfold of secularism, it would start seeing these clashes through Hindu-Christian lens. The ongoing Manipur violence is one string in that long civilizational war, and it has to be treated like one. The clash of civilization is real, and it is staring us on the face. It is high time Indians stop behaving like an ostrich and prepare to fight it off, lest we become extinct like the Mayans, Aztecs, Egyptians, or face expulsions like Zoroastrians and the Jews.